and it's so good to see you again. It was good to see the other night. And, so I'm really looking forward to getting some. I want to hear about the meeting you're going to have on the 16th. I want to be there. And welcome in the audience. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Reverend Joseph Ben-David. He's the founder and the chief pastor, I guess, of the Church of Humanism and Humanist Foundation, if that's correct. I got that right. And he's a major scholar, and he's a major force for moral and ethical and practical vision in terms of the organization of human society, if I may say so. And it's a pleasure to welcome this dear friend of mine, Reverend Joseph Ben-David, once again to Conversations. Welcome.
It's a real pleasure.
You're looking
to be
good
here.
with the. I've never seen you with the bow tie. It makes me think of Rhett Butler. It looks very, very good. Don't we all think that we ought to put the camera on him, and because he's got this really look at that. Isn't that a great picture there? You're looking good,
well,
pal.
You know why?
Why is that?
I was supposed to be in a contest, in an oratory contest on Ingersoll. Colonel Robert Ingersoll, the great American agnostic.
Yeah, okay.
And he was wearing 200 years ago, 100 years ago, a tie like that.
Oh,
so I thought I will keep it on.
Might as well get in character, right? Yeah, well, it looks
yeah.
very good. I think maybe you're going to, I start wearing a bow tie.
You don't wear those anymore.
No, they don't wear those, but that looks good. You could be a riverboat gambler, or you could be a preacher man, or whatever. It looks really good. Anyway, welcome very much. Share with us a little bit your own background. We've done it before on a number of occasions, but you're a humanist of the highest order, and you have been for a very long time. You're from Czechoslovakia. Share a little of that. And we do want to talk. You have a seminar series that you have, and you're going to be giving a presentation on the day after this program airs. We want to let people know about that. But share once more in a brief kind of way your background.
Okay. Before I do that,
yes, sir.
Let me congratulate you on your last program with Major General Bajwa.
Yeah, that was just done. Yeah,
Here is a Pashtun.
Well, he's not actually a Pashtun.
He's
not. He's not. His friend Magul is a Pashtun, but he's a Pakistani. He's from Punjab. Yeah.
But being a Pakistani high military man, his presentation as someone who is a part of a nuclear country,
yes, right,
was very, how should I say, a pioneering project on your part.
Well, those who are watching the program may have seen that program, which we only taped a few minutes ago or finished. It will have aired the day before this program aired. So that'll have reference to that. I think, he's a major person, a very good man.
Yeah.
And I appreciated him filling us in because I really think that's something that's very seriously on the mind of, among many of us, if not all of the world, President Obama right now, along with the health care and the economic stimulus, is the question of what are we going to do in Afghanistan. We got the basis of Mr. McChrystal's report and so forth.
And in Pakistan.
And in, yes, they conflate.
There is
that area.
It's again on the brink.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay, about myself.
Yes, sir.
If I would identify myself, I would say I am a fiercely independent humanist. I am not paid by anyone.
You're not in the pay of anybody?
No, I don't have to listen to anyone. I am not under any orders, and I am a free spirit.
A dangerous proposition.
It is, sort of, depending how far you go.
Yes,
And so far, I was able to go to the edge of the cliff in all my activities and projects in terms of struggling for peace, justice, and freedom.
Right, those are three very large words.
Yeah.
And you've been in association with a great number of people over the decades.
Yeah, sort of, sure.
Not the least of which I'm always happy to mention, Martin Buber.
Yeah, you know, when you move on a certain level, you invariably will bump into all kinds of people on the high level. who
well,
are
that's
there.
how we come to meet each
like,
other.
Erich Fromm, and Abraham
yes.
Maslow,
Right.
Carl Rogers, and I knew
All
these
people you've known.
or attended their lectures and seminars and so on.
And you were a representative of Martin Buber here in the United
Well,
States?
I was cooperating with Martin Buber, not philosophically, but politically.
Okay, important.
Because Martin Buber was the head of an organization called Ihud, which was an organization before the State of Israel was created.
Wow, you were there before the Israel was created.
Yes,
Yeah. You were there in the 30s.
I lived there from 1940 or 1939 till 1954.
Right, having escaped from Czechoslovakia.
Having escaped the Nazis with
Just
the last
barely.
boat.
Yeah.
And my mother was scheduled for the next boat, and that boat didn't go, so she was already murdered in a concentration camp. Yeah.
Your life should be a movie.
Well,
who would play you as a young man?
Well,
Brad Pitt?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. The casting will leave up to somebody else.
In any event,
yeah.
About my identity, maybe already because I was in the youth movement, a leader, when I was like 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
And can you imagine that because I had good teachers, I was able to provide sex education at the age of 13 to 11-year-old.
That's amazing.
Of course,
usually that's just a great big strange mystery going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
and people
because
don't know
the main elements there were shame and guilt.
Right.
And once that has been removed,
not to
and the rational, responsible attitude towards human sexuality is still in young people.
Well, I know, but I'm thinking that for among 13-year-olds just coming into pubescence and that sort of thing, I think that the sexual thing, the discovery of that, isn't just shame and guilt. I think it's also wonder at what in the world is this about. It's a huge sort of thing they come upon.
It's a discovery of a biological and emotional effect.
A major effect and a major force.
And when I was about 16, going on 17, I left Prague, where I was born, and where I was going to the Real Gymnasium, where they already studied Latin and history and so on. And I went to the Karpato Ukraina, which was the last spot in the Czechoslovak Republic. And I wanted to find out why the Ruthenians hate the Jews.
The who?
The Ruthenians.
Ruthenians.
Well, you see, the last part of Czechoslovakia was called Karpato Ukraina. Eventually it was part of Russia.
I see.
Right now, at that time, it was part of Czechoslovakia.
I see. Okay. I didn't realize that.
There lived there the Orthodox Jews and the anti-Semitic Ukrainians.
Together, and they...
And in order to find out, that was my personal, initiative, a sociological study. And in order to do that, I lived 3 months with Orthodox Jews and did everything what the Orthodox Jews are doing, going to the synagogue and praying and everything.
Was your family Jewish, or was?
My father was liberal Jewish, but not very religious. He went to the synagogue once, and my mother was quite neutral.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So overnight.
Your father only been to synagogue once?
Once during the year in Yom Kippur.
Oh, once during a year? I thought maybe once in his life.
No.
Yeah, okay.
See, we were not kosher, but we were allowed to eat ham, because ham was considered like fish. So we could get away with it. So you can see the religion. So overnight in the Karpato Ukraina, after 3 months, I moved to the Ukrainian part. To the Russia, where the Ukrainians lived with the anti-Semites, and lived with them, and did everything that they did, going to the Christian church and working with them as a lumberjack on a mountain. I remember the name of the mountain was Hoverla. And, you know, I had really profound experiences there, because once during the lunch, we were sitting, and one of these guys, these Ukrainians, said, you know, I hate those Jews so much that if I could, we were working with these long sticks with a steel spike. He said, I would take this and run it through the bellies of 10 Jews. So I said to him, wait, I said to him, why don't you do that to me? I'm a Jew. You know, I am not a Jew now because I gave it up. But at that time I was a Jew. And he said to me something very profound. He said to me, I wouldn't do that to you because you are working with us. You see?
Well, there may be a lesson in that,
In other words, it was a human relations issue. It was based on ignorance. It was based on this total human separation and isolation. But there was nothing going on between those people. You see?
There's a lesson in that, is there not?
Two isolated bodies. I discovered many other things. So this is what I was, you know, doing as far as my identity is concerned. Then I came back, of course, to Prague and kept on doing. Then Hitler came, you know, and occupied Czechoslovakia. So I lived half a year under Hitler.
And that's when you escaped.
Yeah, but I lived half a year while Hitler was already occupying Czechoslovakia.
In the place where you were living? His forces were occupying? So you had to move around with that?
No, I lived there. And it was at that time called Protectorate of German Protectorate of Czechoslovakia. So I had a German passport with a swastika on it.
My Lord.
I still have it.
You still have it?
I have a copy.
Oh, show it to me sometime.
Well, maybe.
This will be part of the movie now. This is the movie of your life. I mean, what a movie.
Well,
already we've had 1 million just explosive scenes. I can see it all, you know, with the mountains.
Well,
we have to get the casting down.
Quite a bit. So, you know, I was basically exposed to some terrific teachers, and they influenced me most. First of all, there was this Joseph Milo, who was a Czech Palestinian who spoke Czech and became a very famous German theater director. And he introduced me in, so to say, in drama, you see. He also was a playwright, and he wrote there was a show where the people were talking the language of the street. That was new at that time. You know, people didn't use
on the stage,
you know, really the language of the street.
Common street.
And we were able to do that. And I was in that play. So then I was influenced by a very interesting man, Freddie Hirsch. Freddie Hirsch came to Prague from Germany and was eventually in a concentration camp. And he taught me jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, right,
He taught me, you know, some of these
moves,
arts that, you know, the Oriental arts.
Yes, indeed, martial arts.
That had a big influence on me. And eventually, as a matter of fact, he was the man who in one of the concentration camps was in charge of all the children. And when the Nazis took all the children to an extermination camp, he was the next one to go. And instead of going, he committed suicide. So that's how Freddie died. but he was a very unusual person because he also taught me, so to say, leadership.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, yeah.
And that had something to do with my ability to pioneer things.
Yes, right.
See?
Well, you're a pioneer. Yeah. You're out on the leading edge of justice movements and so on.
When I came to Palestine, I was very much influenced, of course, by Martin Buber.
Absolutely. Judas Magnus?
Judah Magnus, I did not know. Okay. But he was the founder with Buber of this organization that was Zionist, but was against the establishment of a Jewish state by force.
Well, then that was the only way it was going to be done within that historical context.
Not necessarily.
You think there was a chance they could have set up the state without using
not necessarily, force? And then maybe they were for a binational state.
They were for would that be a unitary state now if we look at that area? It would be one Israel?
Well, probably, but you see, right now the situation is completely different, so that there is no comparison and no connection whatsoever. But Martin Buber's idea of the I-Thou had the biggest effect on me.
Mammoth, rather than an I-it,
He wrote this book, and most people never finish reading it because it's so heavy and verbose, you know. But in actuality,
a major work.
It's very simple, and the greatest people in the field of politics and ethics and so on, read it, of course. And this I-Thou basically means that human beings must not be used as objects.
They are used as objects
all the time.
In many institutional arrangements, aren't they? Yeah.
Because once you use a person as an object, you actually killed the person, and you turned the person into a thing.
A thing rather than
in a human being with feelings and with a body that is functional and so on and so forth.
All right, and there are huge implications of what you're saying. I wonder if you can conflate the two, because in the one sense you're saying, if I may, let's conflate a couple or bring together two things if we can. You're saying that you have I and thou, and then you have you then also bring up a major force, and they I think Judah Magnus was Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and you have a Jewish background, and you said that they were pro-Zionist,
but in a completely different sense than Zionism became now.
All right, or then. And if you were a Zionist saying we're going to establish the state of Israel after the diaspora and so forth, and there were all these people living there, was there the possibility that that could have been done without the violence that was necessary for it to be achieved and has been ever since, and is maybe the major point of strong, really just extreme feelings that much of the world is focused on, and maybe a flashpoint that could set off Armageddon, because you have such deep felt feelings that it's the point of greatest confrontation and danger to the world because it's there. So that's one thing. And the other thing, there was something else that could be conflated with. How in the world would it be possible to hold a thing that there should be a state, but it should be done peacefully, when one would know that that was not possible?
Well, whether it's possible or not is a big question. It's a question of faith. Okay. It's a question of believing that it is possible or disbelieving that. Once you are sort of say skeptical, then of course it's impossible. But we know, as a matter of fact, when we celebrated Buber's 75th birthday in New York, he was talking about it, and he was saying what we wanted was to go the more difficult way, which would have been the way of peace and negotiations and diplomacy and so on, rather than the easier way, which was the way of force.
Right.
Because that was easy. All you had to do is to start mobilizing, and then continuing the occupation which we have today. See, but it's a big tragedy, and I have thought very deeply about it.
I know you
because
have. I know you have.
The two extremes are really, on one hand, Martin Buber, and on another hand, a man with the name Ze'ev Jabotinsky. See, Jabotinsky was the man who was advocating long time before the State of Israel a military force, the organization of a military force that would take the country away from the Palestinians and, just like all other countries, occupy it and then start.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's more or less what's happened.
Yes, I would say that
as we stand,
that
which makes that perhaps the flashpoint the most dangerous area in the world.
Yeah, today.
For the theme of your talk that's going to be given tomorrow at the Church of Humanism on approaching the Armageddon, or the consequences.
Well, the actual title is Spiritual Enlightenment or Countdown to Armageddon.
Right.
You see? So now the question is spiritual enlightenment. Right now, Martin Buber has a book called The Eclipse of God.
Okay. I'm not familiar.
We are living in an age of darkness and not an age of enlightenment. There is no light. We don't realize it. We have now a nuclear overkill, which is totally insane, where we have thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons, where each one of them, particularly a hydrogen bomb, could destroy the world.
Well, now wait a minute. I wonder if we could pause there for a minute, because did you see that they found this new fossil in Africa, Ardipithecus?
Yeah, I
amazing.
saw
It takes it back 700,000 years before Lucy. So we've been here about apparently 200,000 years from the most mitochondrial the species that is Homo sapien, and we've gone all over in the world, and we lived for about 10,000 generations. If you figure 20 years a generation, maybe over the long haul, and so forth. And we can extend our consciousness through the use of technology uniquely, it seems to me, although the ants build things in a way and everything, and other creatures do too, which is a wonder in the natural order with the other creatures. And so we do, and we build weapons, and we build states, and we build institutions, and we have weapon systems that have led the fight. The Bronze Age was done in order to get a better weapon to fight somebody, so you could go steal their grain and make your tribe stronger and that kind of thing. It's been a history of violence. Very few periods where there was real peace in the world throughout the whole experience. Have been fighting over scarce resources and so forth. So that's been the context within which all of human evolution has developed: social, political, economic evolution. But the weapons, now you said a word, we throw it away lightly, but is it true? Do we have evidence of that they could, as you say, blow up the world at a point where in the Second World War we were both alive? We were collectively unable to, as you put it, blow up the world. Do you think we've crossed an existential significant point at the level of capability where, from the end of the Second World War to the present, where we cross the line, where the weapon systems, if they're unleashed, not rationally, it's not a rational thing, unleashed in hatred and so forth, that it could mean the end of the Homo sapiens species? Do you have any evidence of that, or do you think, intuitively or otherwise, that the weapon systems, particularly germ, we're to the point now where we can commit, in an entropy kind of way, species-wide suicide of the whole of the Homo sapiens species? And is that is that the reality at the level of capability as you understand, which makes it different than history? We've never had that in history.
Let me say this. Albert Schweitzer, in one of his books, is saying that there are three prospects for humanity. One is nuclear devastation. The other is a global dictatorship, something on the Orwellian line. And the third is
New World,
maybe a humanistic civilization. See? Now, to bring it into the context of the spiritual enlightenment, rather than the geopolitical, military, economic, and purely technological
or technological, materialistic context.
Right.
Yeah.
What is this timeline, the spiritual timeline, that could somehow project a more optimistic and positive vision?
Why
and
would
I tell you where?
Look,
where does it start? We could, of course, use many other modalities, but I'm going to start with mentioning the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten.
He was a monotheist,
He was the first monotheist, but naturalistic monotheist, who believed that God, the sun, is God, because the sun is giving warmth and light and life and so on.
Absolutely
and that
true,
makes sort of sense, but it's still idolatry, because the sun is not, the totality of the highest.
Right.
Then you had Moses and the prophets of Israel. And we have to be very careful, because the Bible is a contradictory piece of literature.
Yeah.
The Bible has the best and the worst. In the Bible, God is a genocider.
Yeah.
He killed the whole humankind with the flood.
Well,
right?
he tried,
So what kind of he had Noah and a couple of people and a couple of animals. But that myth in itself is still a negative myth. What about all the other people who were drowned or killed, right?
Yeah. The Old Testament's a pretty heavy-duty thing.
But on the other hand, you have prophets who have been stoned because they were humanistic, because they were preaching justice, because they were saying, don't conspire with Egypt or Syria. Be yourself. Who were proposing the idea of some kind of a one God. It was still pretty idolatrous, but against the Greeks and Romans, whose really irrational concept of idolatry with all these idols, they were against it.
Stones,
right.
Sticks and things. Yeah.
So then you had a person like Buddha, who came out and suddenly was talking about human kindness and enlightenment and so on.
Yes.
You see? And
5th century BC
and eventually
was
Jesus, look what happened to him, right? What was Jesus preaching? He was preaching love, right? And that was a no-no, because love is forbidden. Even today, real love is forbidden.
Right.
If you don't hate the people whom you're supposed to hate, then you are wrong.
And in general terms, the world of Jesus' time or of Buddha's time or of any of those times has been in anything like what we think in a future tense, just in any kind of a way for the whole.
Well, not only that. Look,
We've not had justice or democracy or anything in the material realm
Jesus was saying, love your enemies, and look what the Christians are doing to their enemies. A few years ago, a few hundred years ago, they were still torturing people, cutting them into pieces, just because they didn't believe in some part of their dogma.
Yeah.
You see?
Right.
So if Jesus would live today, would he be for all these wars? Would he be for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and so on?
I think not. He would be for peace and love.
Yeah, so they would kill him again.
And we have not, our political leaders have not listened to the spiritual leaders or the wisdom
because
schools.
They are not Christians in the sense of the spirit of Jesus.
What about the possibility, it could have been we're living on the Serengeti Plain, it could have been 150,000 years ago. That would be when we're running away from beasts by and large, and we were living very much nested in nature, and there was no thought of anything about justice except survival. And in a very, that kind of thing before civilization, or before any of the wisdom schools. It's there, and that's been the lot into which we were born. And what we're talking, the species was born. We're talking now, when you said that loosely, you threw the line out, we can destroy the world.
Well,
it literally may be true. It wasn't true in any of human history.
No,
even as recently as the Second World War, we were trying to kill each other as hard as we could with all the places in order. Turn out more bombs, turn out more destructive bombs, turn out flamethrowers, dynamite, everything. And we were trying, and we were impotent, as we had been, at the level of species eradication.
Well,
are we now at a point where there are weapon systems, and if so, when did we cross it? How can we measure it? How can we get a modeling of just how destructive it is? What are the trends of that? And is, above all else, is it really true that at the level of capability we have crossed a monumental, existentially significant line where now Homo sapien is able to destroy every single human being that exists on the planet of the Earth? Do you think that's true?
Well, certainly it's
is it
true,
your guess?
But you have
no, it's
this...
certainly true.
Yeah, it is.
You think it wasn't true in the Second World War?
No.
Okay.
No.
So something major has
well,
happened
it's the
at that level.
Look, it's the discrepancy between the humanities and technology. Because if human beings don't have the high development of their ethical and spiritual capacities, they are abusing and misusing the technological power which they have. See, that's where that's why they killed Socrates, because what did Socrates want? Socrates wanted people to develop a higher consciousness of reality.
I think all of the wisdom schools
Well, of course,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
but he specifically, because he was already, so to say, in many ways, a modern thinker by preaching the dialogical method of discovering the mutual truth which the people don't have. You see?
Well,
and then
but you're off on another tact. You're talking about spirituality.
Exactly, because
you think it's relevant.
Well,
what we're talking about is within the material world, the real world, reaching a new order of destructiveness, and we didn't get to anything about the positive side of what that materialistic world might have that makes things different in an existential way. But the spiritual things have just been ignored.
Well,
and you've never had justice for everybody and anything. We've never had justice. Always a power group takes control and manipulates.
Well,
and we don't have justice now.
Well, let's follow this timeline.
Okay.
How it developed, because there suddenly came Darwin.
That was
and
1859.
That was a huge thing, because for the first time, humanity, the consciousness of humanity, was brought to a point where it was possible to see reality versus the myth that produced theocracy, religious dictatorship, and religious insanity, because that's what it is.
Well, you used all loaded words there in terms of the spiritual, because there's also love, and things like that are included within the wisdom schools of Jesus, and
well, that's what I was.
It's not all, and then we had, but we were ignorant.
Well, of course,
but,
of course.
you know, those things are outside the realm of material or the materialistic evolution of events.
Let's follow the path.
Okay.
Because after Darwin came Marx. And Marx today is completely misunderstood because Marx is associated with Stalinism, you see, today, particularly in our country.
Yes, right, absolutely, yeah, right.
But Marx himself was a defender of the, so to say, exploited masses of people, trying to show the injustice that is being done to them through capitalism. And that was a major discovery, or at that time actually feudalism, see, slavery and so on. And that had to be overcome. And here, even if I'm jumping a little bit historically, you have the French Revolution, where there was an uprising against the aristocracy that was sitting there and maintaining this power of injustice, whether it was in France or whether it was in Russia before the revolution.
Well, it was about 1,000.
And then it came again perverted and turned into dictatorships.
It always is.
You see?
And the Ancient regime, 1,000 years after Rome, they thought of themselves, the aristocratic heads of Europe, thought of themselves as, quote, historically legitimate.
Of course.
That's where authority lies. We represent authority, and they represent that. Then there was something going on at the level of material development called a steam engine and industrialization, and there was a revolution made across the ocean, and they questioned the legitimacy or the appropriateness of the ancient regime or the Ancient regime. And that's what's going on now, because we now have a major power, the United States of America, that made a revolution. They think they are legitimate for the ages, and they got bases in 130 countries, and they're going to impose their view of the way things should be organized or the reality on the world, but they do not have a vision adequate to what the future requires to bring justice to 80% of the population not well served, while a few people own everything and have all the power concentrated like always they have had. And the future needs something new, and our intellectuals or none of our leadership elements are able to provide that in a way that involves everybody in a new and liberated era, way, which has never been characteristic of human history. It's always been unjust, with the voices calling for justice put up on the cross, because it violated the power structures of the the unjust systems that were in place, and it continues.
Well, it has something to do with the perverse obsession of human beings with power being God.
Right, right.
Because they think that all problems can be solved through power. And that is a superstition, because that is not true. Power certainly plays an important role. And I would say, I would prefer using the word strength rather than power.
Okay.
There is something
loaded,
unjustly aggressive
about
when
power.
You talk about power. You know, power corrupts, and total power corrupts totally, is the saying. But strength is healthy, because to be strong, that means being capable, see? And not necessarily harming other people. See?
Well, that's what conflating back Mr. Buber, saying they wanted to have they wanted to have Zionism, but they wanted to be peaceful with love.
Right.
And that was not going to be possible in the material world of reality.
Let's go back to this question of love, because this is such an important issue. Okay. Now, most people think that they are capable of loving because they are falling in love. They are obsessed with some person or some idea or some animal like a dog or a cat. They are in love with money. They are in love with their profession and so on. That is partly true, but only for some people, in a very small degree, some people it is justifiable. In actuality, it is an obsession. And it was Erich Fromm, who for the first time put love in the proper perspective. He was, after Jesus, the first one who was preaching love, and he wrote this book, The Art of Loving.
Yes, among others,
sure. But we are talking now
right,
about that
exactly.
one element
right,
of love.
Fine, yeah, right, okay.
Now, you see, why do people torture? Why do people rape? Why do people hate irrationally? You know,
it is irrational.
There is a reason, and it has to do with psychology.
Yes.
See, now conventional psychology deals with psychopathology, with mental disease. But humanistic psychology deals with the healthy aspects of people, how people, so to say, good people can become better, or how people who are partly healthy, because nobody is 100% healthy, everybody has a little bit of something, how can they become mentally healthier and fully develop their potential as human beings? And that's where Abraham Maslow comes into the picture with Erich Fromm. Now,
you were on the same page
the
there.
First one,
all the good people.
The first one who came up with this idea, who looked into that from a, so to say, psychologically profound standpoint, was the psychiatrist Harry Stack Sullivan. Harry Stack Sullivan who is the father of American psychiatry.
No, really? Okay.
He came up with this idea.
Haverstock? Or?
Harry Stack Sullivan.
Oh, Harry Stack Sullivan.
Stack Sullivan.
Okay, I'm not familiar. I'm learning here now. That's
good.
A major. Okay, thank you.
The father of American psychiatry.
I'll be running it down by I get home
tonight.
And
he was the one who introduced the idea that mental illness is grounded in human relations. Particularly the relations between parent and child.
Oh, when was he living?
He was born in the 19th century, but died in the 20th century.
In America?
In America.
Okay,
Yes.
Good. Thank
he was
you.
A major American
Okay, thank you.
personality.
That's a major gap. Yeah.
And this idea that human relations, particularly the relations between parent and child, see, determine the future development of the person.
Okay.
And there were other people like Harry Harlow. Harry Harlow was a psychologist who did experiments with monkeys. And he was building two kinds of mother monkey. One that was made from soft material and has a nice face, and one that was fierce and had was made from metal and wires. And the monkeys that grew up on that harsh mother, surrogate mother, they all became sick mentally.
Really?
And the ones who were, so to say, in that loving condition, they became healthy. So that was a very important thing that he discovered, that if a child is lacking the love of the parent, the child will get mentally sick.
Or
aberrated.
You see? And that can be passed on generation to generation.
And Erich Fromm is saying that most parents are not capable of giving love to the child.
Why are they not?
They are not because they are, instead of love, using a neurotic type of love which is obsessive, manipulative, and exploitative.
And that's called being realistic.
And they call it, they call it being deeply in love is really, in most instances, a neurotic thing. It's an obsession, see?
And for most of the people, it seems to me, if I may, I understand the importance of love and all of that. And you've got all the people, and some that I'm going to look up. I'm happy for that. But for love, but the thing that gets in the way, first of all, it's not practical to be thinking that way, and that the world is harsh, the world is difficult, and you have to be realistic. And the first order of business that you have to be concerned with is, particularly if in a world that is not justly organized or not in an easy way, are the things you need. If a mother's wondering which of her two babies she's going to have to let starve to death because there's not enough food, she's not going to be able to be very involved with things like love when the means of existence are not available for her to be able to nurture the children, that kind of thing. The world is not just, and that they're living on the edge, and things are very, very difficult. It's very hard for those things. Those are things of an advanced stage of things so far as individuals are concerned. And if you have an unjust world where all the power and wealth and everything is contained in the hands of a few, and the others are just objects to be manipulated by the few, as has been the history of civilization by and large, most of the people wallowing around in the mud, while a few people own everything in great castles, or it's the same in the modern world. The injustice reigns in terms of the material world. It's going to be hard for them to develop it, perhaps. Maybe I'm wrong, or being too behaviorally oriented, but if you don't have elemental justice, I think it's going to be hard for love to become generalized throughout the human society, it would seem to me.
Well, we are fluctuating here between politics, economics,
reality and spirituality.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's this effect of spiritual enlightenment which presents the only hope.
You think so? Spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah.
Not the enlightenment of the rational mind or of the development, not spiritual, not some fairy tale or some myth that is done to make people feel well, but realistically. And then on the adverse side of that destructive scenario that may be the lot, we have a capability of making it at a materialistic level so able to have universal love be able to be something that can be followed by everybody without it being detrimental to their existence because of violence directed against people who have the audacity to be dealing. They're in a situation of elemental security and ability. We could take care of everybody in a way that we historically have not been able to do and create a world of universal justice rather than an unjust world, and that would be the adverse side of the destructive scenario, which may make your lecture that you're going to give the day after this program is aired on we may be approaching Armageddon, and that we will touch off reifying outdated institutions rather than bringing what the future requires, a liberation in a way that's never been characteristic of history at a materialistically understood level available, and that makes this the most interesting time without repairing to a lot of the things and myths that we've lived by out of history that make, what I'm getting at.
Well, let me say...
Do you think are you optimistic for the human prospect, or do you think we're likely to blow it all up and join entropy rather than liberate the humanity and the ecology, which is now within our grasp technologically, as well as the destructive capability, in a way that it never has been?
Well, this is a time of decision.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
It is very hard to say whether we will survive or not, or whether we will have a global dictatorship of the worst kind, where we have technology and materialism completely, in a most perverse way, dominate the whole world. Now, this is an open question.
Well, you made a triad. You make a triad. You make a three. We're going to destroy everything. I was saying we're going to destroy everything, we're going to liberate everybody. That's the dyad. That's a dyadic
okay.
You say there's a third. You could have dictatorship. Why can't we have justice that is not a dictatorship as one of the possibilities?
Let me say how
and a liberating order that's never been characteristic, but is resonatingly there, available to us now, creating great tension in the world because our leadership, intellectual, political, economic, does not provide an alternative that is relevant to what the future requires, only reifies outdated institutions from the past.
Let me say how I'm using the word spirit.
Okay.
This is one of the most abused words in the dictionary.
I think you're right.
See?
The Inquisition.
What is understood by the spirit, you know, it's such a confusing term that it requires clarification, not in an objective way, but in a way how people are using it.
Yes,
so I have to say subjectively how I'm using it in order to be understood.
Right.
When I'm using the word spirit, I'm talking about the mental capacity of human beings to perceive reality in a way which is creative and which produces results that are of universal interest, because it has to be not just in the interest of human beings, it has to be in the interest of all sentient beings. It's not enough, you know, just to, so to say, in an egoistic way, talk about this is speciesism, you know. We have to talk about global future.
I think so, increasingly.
If we don't relate to nature in a way which is in accord with nature, the nature will destroy us.
Yeah, apparently.
You know, we
global warming thing is coming to the fore.
There are other dangers besides the nuclear threat.
Yeah. Although that's a major one.
Well, sure, because that's where the trigger is. Because this trigger has something to do with the mentality of the people who have their fingers on those buttons
and remember,
that may release it.
We still have the limbic core, we still have the reptilian core as part of our consciousness, and because everything's connected, and those fight and flight kinds of things are still active in terms of a rational part of the human psyche.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I created the Church of Humanism.
Thank you very much.
I mean, little me and the Church of Humanism is a minuscule kind of religious organization. But when I'm using the word religion, or we are using the word religion, we are using it more in a sense, and I would mention John Dewey, the American philosopher, who was talking about, or Julian Huxley.
Julian Huxley was major. I read everything he had. The Huxley family was amazing. What a biologist.
Yeah.
And
well, they were both humanists, you see.
Well, there was his father, Henry, was it? I think, as a biologist, and Julian was, and then who's the one? The other, Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley was his brother.
It was a hell of a family. I mean, what an input they had. And that little thing they had on television about Darwin, major, and they had Wallace, and it was happening. And everything is happening, and we're learning things, and coming out of ignorance,
so you see,
where we had to repair to myth in order to have some
what
sense.
Is religion? There are two kinds of religion. There is this, official, formal religion of the various religious organizations.
Right.
And then there is religion in this sense of John Dewey, where religion represents the highest aspiration of a person.
Yeah.
And the belief in those values, or as Julian Huxley is saying, on that which determines destiny. What are the sources, the ideas, or the political so to say, expressions of reality that affect life.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
So that religion can be very good, religion can be very bad. If someone believes in nonsense, or someone believes in something very hateful and so on, it's also religion.
Yeah, I know.
See, so religion in itself is not necessarily good.
No, but there is a great deal of good in the religious, spiritual,
if it's good,
wisdom schools.
You see, if it's good,
we can repair to,
then, of course, religion can be a modality that may have a tremendously creative, uplifting, effect.
Yes, exactly right.
And that's what we need.
Yeah, that's probably okay. That's
what
probably,
we need. So that,
and there's been a lot of people who have tried throughout and there's been some progress on that front of humanism and so forth, and the humanist. And some people think that humanism means that you don't have any bond with the wisdom schools or the spiritual traditions, but you can have that. You can have a combination.
The word humanism is a very, how should I say, controversial word.
Yeah.
And I think that for us, it's actually detrimental, because most people understand under humanism a kind of a dry rationality.
Yeah, a Spock.
Well,
a rationality.
They talk about feelings, but they don't have any feelings.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
see, or they say they have feelings, but then when you actually interact with them, you see that they are pretty cold.
Well, that may be what I was trying to lay on you when I'm trying to say, let's talk materialistic without spiritual and everything, and I have that sense. But that would be also, when Darwin came forth, he had a heck of a time.
Well, that's where the question
in 1859, because he was going to question the means by which people got a sense of ethics. They also got a sense of purpose and identity.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with Galileo when he came forward and said, we're not the center of the universe. It was very upsetting. So we may be coming to a time of a qualitative transformation writ large now, back to that. And I'm arguing it from the material world because that's the one that seems to be in the driver's seat. And that's the one that is making the changes. It's been the technology. He was giving us a rational understanding of how things came to be, which was running against the means by which people got a sense of purpose and what's it all about, the major issues. And that's still going on. And humanism is always thought of as being against the myths that form the basis of all our spiritual traditions.
Well, I define
fairy tales.
I tell you how I define humanism. I define humanism as the ultimate concern for the human condition in the universal context.
Oh, well, that's very good. That's a good
that's
comment.
my definition.
Do you have that trademark?
That I
so that we can market that
but
sucker.
it's the result of decades of thinking and feeling and being involved in major, humanist organizations and positions.
Yeah, that's perhaps where the hope is. And one,
I will repeat it.
Okay, say it because we're out of time.
The ultimate concern for the human condition in the universal context.
That's a very good thing. Thank you, Jendo. Your pleasure. Tomorrow night, the 16th, you can get information on my website. He's giving a talk on
spiritual enlightenment or